Please.
So I think it applies to all of you guys, but especially to Susanna with the gene-edited varieties. How do you guys think extension and like adoption programs run by different industry bodies will play? Like what type of role will they play in this massive change that we need to embrace if we want a very successful industry moving forward?
Can you hear me? Yes. Very good question, and a bit challenging because gene-edited grape varieties are, at the moment, I believe, in a grey zone because the regulations related to gene-edited varieties are not very precise, neither in Europe nor in Australia, Australasia. And do I believe that gene-edited varieties could be an important component of sustainable development of wine industry? My very personal professional opinion is that yes, but I also think that we have a lot of work to do in terms of first to understand consumer behavior towards this, and that is one of my PhD research questions. And also to understand, well, when the regulatory landscape is more precise, then to understand how are we navigating that. Because depending on the regulations, then a lot of things are going to change on what consumers will see on the labels or what the producers need to put on the labels when they are producing wines from gene-edited grape varieties. What will be the role of the national bodies in that change or integration of gene-edited grape varieties? I think, again, the connection between the link between research, industry, and a lot of communication on what are the priorities and how we can effectively navigate this to be able to integrate them as soon as possible. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Chris, I think if we can bring the microphone here.
Thomas, I'm just really interested in this soft pruning. I wonder, is it actually a tool being done here in Australia, or more particularly South Australia? And then what is the prevalence of the trunk disease in Australia, or more particularly South Australia again?
Sure. So I was introduced to the method through Simonet and Cirque, who fortunately for us have a regional consultant that kind of addresses Australia and New Zealand as a whole. So I had spent some time working with him and was able to be introduced to the methods that they're using through that process, them coming out and working with different companies or them starting to speak to regional, groups as a more, a broad spectrum thing. So for me then, UTIPA being quite present in older vine material, being a disease that slowly kills our vines, if not managed correctly, if not reworked, is an issue here. But for me, they have a disease called ESCA over there, which is essentially our disease on steroids. So what I wanted to gain from that component of my trip was if they can beat this with soft pruning methods and they can decrease the instance of a disease such as that, it should enable us to create healthier vines over here, therefore ultimately reducing the cost of reworking and crop loss in the future. So working with them here as well as over there.
So, sorry, just to take it a step further, I mean, the knowledge seems, I don't want to downplay it, but quite simple. I don't want to downplay it, but I think, it's like quite doable?
It's doable, but there's essentially a rule book. There's a huge rule book of things that they go into. If I had an hour, I could keep talking to you about the method and the components and the bits and pieces we should and shouldn't do. The shoot thinning component that goes along with it as well is just as important, but essentially setting up an entire season, a growing season of working your vines correctly to aid different processes of wound healing and growth from planting right through to an old vine. So,
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom. Other questions from the floor? Yes, please.
I think it was for you, Tony. You mentioned leaf roll virus. Was it? No, Charles? Charles, sorry. How rampant it was. Did you visit any nurseries or get any understanding of how they're trying to manage that with clean material for the industry, because it's becoming a big challenge for Australia.
Yeah, the leaf roll virus variety we've got is not anything like what they've got in Europe, Napa and California and South America. But in Lodi, they're trialling using sniffer dogs in the nurseries to try and identify with the virus. If you look at South Africa, their sustainability model involves a scorched earth policy around vines to try and stop the spread of the virus by killing all the ants anywhere near the place, because the ants act as little insects that move the mealybugs around the place. It's a major problem for them all, which they haven't got a cure for yet.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Oh, Tony.
There's to anybody on the stage. I mean, you went there to learn about their areas. What was the impression, do you think, that they had of the Australian or South Australian wine industry in the South Australian wine regions? Did they have any sort of sense of what was going on here? Was there a knowledge about what we were doing? Were they interested in what we were doing? That kind of thing. Is there anybody who would, who may have picked up on that?
That's probably for all of you in many ways.
I'll start with that. As part of my project, I developed a network looking at from every region within the two countries I went to, looking at the future of sustainability and more particularly the future of financial sustainability of the owners of capital, which is without that the three legs of the stool for ESG are going to fall over. They were really excited to have the exchange of information, and despite the fact that Australia's seen as so far away, they're really keen to develop further exchange right across the board. That was my observation anyway.
If I had 5 minutes, Tony, I was getting to this point. One thing that I also did as part of my bursary was to went to see distributors and importers, and I had dinner one night with a group called Epicurean and asked the question of what's the problem with Australian wine, and the response was Australia. And it seemed to be a real issue at the moment, where once upon a time we had a really good foothold in the US market, and we've lost that. And also caught up with Chuck Haywood, who actually had the Jug Shop in San Francisco, and the same story. So again, one of the things that I made mention in my presentation was that they want to see more Australian winemakers back in trade, how we used to, telling our stories. So I think we're in an awful position over there in many parts of the world, because we're not travelling enough and not telling our unique stories. And we've got some of the best wines on this planet. We're just not telling people.
Sorry, moving on from that and specialness of South Australia, I think one thing that we have in our pocket is the absence of phylloxera, which is something that we should be super proud of and protective of. I mean, for me, working with pruning consultants, the fact that they could talk to me about working with vineyards that were up to 170 years old, that's something that they obviously don't have in most instances. And so for us, the relaying of knowledge of managing vineyards, but then also working with vineyards that are so old, is just something super special and something that, in a lot of instances people don't have. So.
From my experiences around irrigation and water management, we're streaks ahead of what's going on in America. We have regulated water resources, which they don't. It's a bit of a free-for-all still there at the moment. The government's trying to instigate some laws around taking water out. They're going to encounter a lot of resistance from the growers in California, but it's that unfortunately a mentality which is going to be hard to break, but they're going to have to. We're way ahead of them with that, so we look after our water resources much better, and we've taken a lot of voluntary licensing to make sure that we have water resources into the future, sustainable resources. Technology-wise, they're still way behind as well. They're starting to catch up. but water's still cheap. So while water still remains cheap and pretty much easy to get, they're not really looking at adopting too much technology, whereas I think Australians take a little bit more of a forward approach into the future, and they want to be prepared for what's coming with tightening of water. And we also have pretty high costs of pumping water and buying water, so we've been forced to adopt technology a bit faster because of that.
Anyone else? Shirley?
Thank you. I had two areas that I engaged with from an Australian perspective. Australian Women in Wine, I was able to, in advance of the trip, actually have 3 or 4 Zoom calls with people, which was great because it felt like I had friends by the time I got there. And we talked about how women in wine groups in Portugal, the international as well, like the international conference that I attended, which is separate to that group, and then also the UK. So they really look to Australia and our comms that we put out, and a lot of the news stories that we share. We make an effort to share international stories here as well, so that was really good. I also met with the Porto Protocol team, and just their commitment to sustainability and so many opportunities for us as a country to engage. And that's why I think from a Great Wine Capitals, I'd love to see it beyond wine tourism. I just think we've got such an opportunity. We exchange ideas, technology, packaging, dry goods, all sorts of ideas. And from that perspective, seeing wines from 27 different countries, you just see the similarities and the differences, and the opportunities to engage within the network a lot more strongly, beyond just it being a tourism, and which Celador is a lovely place to visit. So yeah, that was really good from a network perspective.
Wonderful. Sure.
2 points. I believe that the perception of Australia, from the perspective of research, there was a lot of respect towards the wine research that is done in Australia. And then another point that might not be of primary importance, but still I wanted to share, is the name of alternative varieties. We call them alternative varieties here, or emerging varieties. We have different names, but usually we do call alternative. And across the different capitals that I was presenting my research related to alternative varieties, all of them were confused because they thought alternative varieties are the hybrids, which could be something to consider if we want to target countries, export countries with alternative varieties, then to consider the name for these varieties. Yes.
That's good. Any other thoughts? Otherwise, we might pass it. Gone. The gentleman at the back.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, everyone. Some great insights. Just a question about any exposure to or observations of circular economy, waste management, and particularly biochar or carbon markets in your travels.
Not on the biochar side of things, but the Porto Protocol was massive into the circular economy. The commitment with Cork in Portugal was very much about that. We talked about in the conference theme was sustainability as well, so there was a lot of talk. Actually, I'll give you a contact for hybrids. With lots of areas about circular economy and that sort of thing in there. So that was a really big topic too. Unfortunately, I haven't got enough time to talk about it.
That's what we have here. We want to have the opportunity for people to chat after the official panel. Thank you. Mark? There was a microphone.
So, Janina, I'm not letting you get away here, okay? So I've got a question for you. So, in your travels around Europe, you know, it's always been a bit of a joke about, you know, Brettanomyces as part of the terroir of some of the wines in Europe, right? But what attention are you seeing, you know, the cellars that you went through in Europe, you know, paying to the control and of Brettanomyces in the cellar and in the wines?
Thank you. I was waiting for that question. So, the main thing there in Europe is the long-term aging. So most of the wine styles are made for aging like 2, 3, 4 years. So besides that, the wineries apply different protocols, different strategies to control and monitor the wine. So basically they spend a lot of time, resources to make sure that they can keep the quality of the wine. So it was a general request that I received there. From then is like, try to find a methodology where we can reach the stability, the microbiological stability of the wine. In that way, we don't spend a lot of time, resources, because it's, for them, Brettanomyces is an extra cost of production. So, and this is the thing that I'm working at the moment. And also they asked me, please use a technology, something that we already had in the winery. So in that way, we don't need to spend more money, invest time, training more people to learn how to manage Brettanomyces. And the thing is, I'm trying just to give the last touch of my research and provide to the industry with a methodology that they can feel confident that they are reaching the stability, but a long-term stability rather than checking every time, every week sometimes. So that's the thing. And they feel it's a general problem around each region that I visited. The problem was there, and the winemakers were like, I don't know, really honest regarding the problem, because they didn't try like to hide the situation. They told me, oh, please, we have this winery size, we use barrels, we like to age the wine in barrels, in bottles, so please make sure that your project provide an important insight for the industry. In that way, Brettanomyces is not anymore a problem for the wine industry.
Thank you. Thank you, Janina. Sherry, you have a question? Yep. And I think we might need to start bringing to a conclusion, but please.
Thank you, guys. So I'm a PhD student studying market evolution, particularly interested in the industry level evolution. So this is a question about the competition and also cooperation or competition as well. So it was a question about actually for Susanna, because I'm interested in, for example, the climate change and how do the individual wineries are doing certain stuff, and what's their role for collaboration in terms of the industry level. And like you mentioned, that the regulatory role can play quite importantly in that place. And also it's probably a question for everyone else as well in terms of like pruning methods, women in wine, and also disease control. So how do your impression in terms of the collaboration out there comparing to what we're doing here? Yep, that's a question.
Thank you for the question. I think that, yes, as I said at the end of my speech, I think that one of the key ways to be able to address the challenges related to climate change is efficient collaboration. And in some regions, I did so collaboration, and some others, I wouldn't say so. And I think that was one of the strongest impressions I had during the trip. There are different research institutions. They are doing the same research related to gene editing, related to hybrids. They don't have any idea what is the other research institution doing. There is no collaboration, or there is some collaboration, but not very strong one, even in the same country between different regions. In the same region, yes. Between different regions, not really. And I can even say, let's say Champagne and Bordeaux, I don't think they are very strong in the collaboration, but that's my opinion again. They might question that. But also, for example, Italy and France, they are doing amazing research related to gene editing, but they don't really know that much about each other.
Of course. What do you want?
Well, that has cultural reasons, that has professional reasons, I guess. But
particularly with France.
I might be naive, but I believe that it could be much more efficient when they share with each other, and when all of us share with each other, and that will be better and easier to learn and to be more efficient, to progress.
That's good. Can I just have one last question for Marcel? Because I was really interested in one thing that you said about the visit to vineyard as part of their tourism experience, also connected with also what Tom said about, hey, we have vineyards at 170 years old. There is a reason why we don't let people walk through our vineyards just randomly. Based on your experience, how we can embed, however, some of that element in the wine tourism cellar door offering so that we can talk to tourists more about this amazing background that we have here that it's not there in many other parts of the world?
I think there are several ways of doing this, but what I've seen throughout my visits was that the vineyard tour and the cellar tour was part of almost every visit, and the option that any visitor had was essentially choosing the wine flights that they wanted to taste. So everyone would go through the storytelling, and everyone would see where the grapes were grown, where the wine was made, and then you would get to taste some of the wines. But the overall storytelling, the communication about the brand, the values of the brand, of the region was the same for everyone, whether someone wanted to spend 25 euros or 100 euros, depending on the wines and that was another important thing, is that obviously doing a tour and taking people in the vineyard, that will take up at least 1 hour, 1.5 hours of one or two staff members, which means it costs money. So therefore, all wine tastings and winery visits are charged, and they are not redeemable because you pay for the experience.
Yeah, thank you very much. Look, hopefully this has really given us even more food for thoughts in terms of what we can ask them, use you guys as our new beacon of lights for all the topics that you've covered through your visits. But unfortunately, we need to also to bring it to an end so that we can also have more opportunity to chat once the formalities are finished. So can you please join me in congratulating them again and thanking you for sharing your knowledge with us. And I can please ask you to move back to your seat so that we can move to the concluding remarks of this afternoon. And for that, I would like to invite Ms. Jo Collins to join us on stage to share a few words also on behalf of Mrs. Scriven.
Thank you, Armando, and I'll try and stick to my 3 minutes as well, so you don't have to ding me. Thanks, David. Look, unfortunately, the Minister is really unwell this evening, and also really disappointed that she can't be here to hear about all the really fantastic things that you've learned whilst away as part of this initiative. And she has asked if I'd just share a bit of her speech, which I'm really delighted to be able to do tonight. Can I also acknowledge that the land that we meet on today is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. And also just want to acknowledge Simon Burgess from the Wine Centre and all of your team. Thank you very much for hosting us here this evening, but also to the partners in our local membership that invest their time and finances in running a number of initiatives, including the Outbound Knowledge Exchange. So Inca from the Wine Industry Association, Armando from the university, and also Chloe from the Tourism Commission as well. We thank you. And also a thank you to Chris Lloyd. He was one of our state's food and wine ambassadors, for joining us here tonight as well. It's really lovely to have you. Most importantly, to all of you, our bursary recipients, who have done a really fantastic job in sharing your experiences with us this evening. And I also just want to acknowledge all of our Great Wine Capital friends from across the world who will be listening to this recording, and sincerely thank those of you who have hosted our recipients as part of this process within your regions. So it's really great to be part of a really wonderful occasion. We first ran this initiative right before COVID, so we had people go and visit other parts of the Capital Network, and unfortunately we couldn't do what we're doing tonight and sharing the information because we were in a very different situation at that time. It's also just a really great opportunity to get together and have some networking and a celebratory glass of great South Australian wine post-harvest. And just to say that the government is really proud through PIRSA to lead the local steering committee chapter in delivering some of these really fantastic initiatives. In terms of the Great Wine Capitals Global Network, the outstanding quality of South Australian wine and wine tourism is well known locally, but it's also acknowledged by our international peers. For those of you who may not know, we were unanimously voted into this network by members back in 2016, and it really provides us with a great opportunity for global recognition of our outstanding industry across the areas of production, research, education and wine tourism. And it also allows us to benchmark against the other renowned wine regions as well, such as Bordeaux and Napa Valley, which you've heard a bit about tonight. I do want to say it is more than tourism. Tourism is a really big focus for the network, but we have had so many great opportunities in terms of exchange of knowledge and collaborating really closely with our colleagues, and it's extended well beyond tourism. And I think, Mark, you'd agree, post bushfires, both when Napa had their fires, in terms of sharing knowledge with us, which was really well received, and us sharing knowledge with Napa post our fires and all the fantastic work that was undertaken at AWRI, which eventuated into some really great outcomes. I think that session we had about 250 winemakers from memory from Napa tuned in to hear what we were doing locally, which was really terrific. In terms of the Porto Protocol, we are part of the Porto Protocol through our membership to the network, so that is something we absolutely surely need to tap into, which is terrific. COVID was another area of great exchange. When we were all in lockdown, we all connected via our online opportunity to really learn about what everybody else was doing during lockdown and how they were adapting to that particular situation. And I think probably the latest, greatest exchange we've actually had was post the last AGM, where we were sharing knowledge with the Commissioner for Agriculture in Napa Valley and all of the issues that they were having around fruit fly, and have created a really fantastic dialogue between California officials, but also officials here in biosecurity as well. And we've shared a lot at the last AGM about building resilience in each of our regions with some of the real challenges that we're all facing at the moment as well. In terms of the Outbound Knowledge Exchange Program, it is a really important initiative. We see it as a really important initiative as part of our local steering committee, and it offers benefits at two levels. So one, professional development for individuals, but two, opportunities for our local wine industry to leverage the knowledge and experiences of other top wine regions as well. While the 3 bursaries were originally on offer to this cohort, the quality of the applications that we received was so great that we managed to get a bit more funding to be able to support the 8 bursaries that were ultimately awarded. And to each of you, congratulations on being awarded the opportunity. Thank you for your excellent presentations this evening. I've got lots of things I want to talk to you about as well, and really encourage you to continue to keep sharing the lessons and ideas beyond today's event to the benefit of the rest of our state. On behalf of the Minister, today I'm really pleased to announce that the Steering Committee is offering the Bursary program again this year. So if you know someone that might be interested in this excellent international learning experience, then I really encourage you, or to encourage someone you know, to put forward an application. The process and applications will open up on the 1st of July. Which is really fantastic. And the other flagship program that we have is the Best of Wine Tourism Awards, which celebrates excellence and innovation in wine tourism. And the awards for this year are open as of today. And again, if you know someone, who offer outstanding wine tourism in the categories of culinary experiences, innovation, accommodation and more, we really encourage you to put yourself forward as well. And we're very fortunate to have 2 of our judges here tonight, in Tony Love and also in Helen Edwards as well. And Nick Ryan is the other one who unfortunately couldn't be here today. Always looking as a steering committee for ways to support broader participation in both these programs, in particular through sponsorship. So if it sparks an interest for any of you, then please speak to any one of the steering committee members here today. More details about what I've spoken about tonight with the Outbound Knowledge Exchange and the Best of Wine Tourism Awards will be emailed to you all post this event today as well. So been wonderful to hear everything that has been experienced. Look forward to talking more. Thank you, Armando, for doing a terrific job in hosting today. Thank you to Tara and David for organising. And just, I guess, one last little plug I'll make as well is that the AGM this year will be held in Verona from the 20th to the 24th of October. I can absolutely guarantee that if you want to go and learn the best and be experienced to the best that another great wine producing region has on offer across a lot of different areas, it's the best place to do it. It's about $1,500 Australian dollars to participate in the business delegation part of the program. That covers a lot of expenses, and if you're really looking to gain knowledge of other great wine capitals, it's a really top way to do it and a very affordable way to do it as well. So if anybody wants any further information on that, then speak to one of the steering committee members as well. Thank you very much. Thanks, Amanda.
Okay, well, this is really just now me between you and the drink, so I'm going to keep it as short as I can. I just really want to thank all of you for attending, to the Bursary recipients for the excellent job that you've done tonight in telling us your stories and your experience. I also would like to thank Tara and Caitlin, that unfortunately is not with us today again, but without them, this presentation, this whole night would not be possible, so thank you for that. To Daniel for being such a perfect timekeeper for all of us, and definitely to also the National Wine Centre and Simon and his team for keeping this event as great as it always is. From me, again, thank you for your attention, thank you for attending. These events are really good when we have a great audience that is active and is participating, that then can use further thoughts to bring it back to the regions, to the companies, so that we can use all the knowledge tomorrow, you know, in the way in which we do our business. So without further ado, again, thank you, have a great night, and keep the chats going. Cheers.